I'm sitting there as they're brushing their teeth, and happen to look up at the window because I see something. All of a sudden, a face comes in. I make out the big kind of big eyes slanted, the oval head shape, and it stares, and I scream.
Wow.
And my sisters at the same time looked when I screamed. They screamed as well. We all took off running out of that bathroom to go find my mother.
Are you walking through a storm that feels like it will never end? Do you wonder if life's storms have stolen the beauty from your life for good? You're in the right place. My name is Heather, and like you, I've been through a storm or two and wondered if life would ever be beautiful again. Here we share warriors' words, stories of discovering beauty after battles, and the worth in your wounds. Pick up your sword or boxing gloves and join the battle. Your words are powerful, my friends. Make them warrior words. Welcome, warriors. Stephen M. Bell is the author of Uncomfortable Truth and The Thinning Veil, Christ, Consciousness, and the Modern Phenomenon of UAPs, Orbs, and the Unseen World. Raised Church of Christ in West Texas, Stephen later became a Lutheran worship leader before a journey through addiction, recovery, church history, and spiritual discernment led him and his family into the Catholic Church. His work explores the intersection of faith, trauma, addiction, spiritual warfare, consciousness, paranormal experiences, and the growing cultural conversation surrounding UAPs and the unseen world. Through writing, music, and podcast appearances, Stephen encourages others to seek truth, healing, discernment, and ultimately Christ in a confusing and spiritually hungry age. Now, before we hear from Stephen, I'd like to invite you to leave a review for the show. Reviews help other people find the podcast because it tells the algorithms what people like. So if you're on Apple, just scroll down to the ratings and reviews section, click on the stars, hopefully 5, and write 1 or 2 sentences. That's all you need, just 1 or 2 sentences about the show itself or maybe a favorite episode. Now, if you're on Spotify, you can leave a rating, but they don't do reviews yet. And again, hopefully 5 stars, but you can comment on the individual episodes, and that helps as well. Now, on YouTube and Rumble, you can hit the subscribe button, you can like the videos, and you can comment on both of those sites as well. Any of these actions, they will all help spread the word, and I would be so grateful for the help. Now, grab a tissue and join Stephen and me as he shares about how an encounter early in his life stayed with him all of his life. And that experience, combined with his former addiction and newly found Catholic faith, led him on a journey of exploration, one he entered as a skeptic, and one he continues with the knowledge and teachings of the Church. Let's rock. Hi, everyone. We are blessed to welcome Stephen M. Bell back to the podcast. And if you remember, he came and shared his story of addiction and his conversion story from the Church of Christ and the Lutheran Church to Catholicism. Welcome back to the Warrior Words podcast, Stephen.
Hello, Heather. Thank you for having me back and taking on this topic.
All right. Well, this topic, as they probably heard when I read your bio, is a little different one for this podcast, but as you and I talked beforehand, it really does kind of stem from what we talked about before and what we also talk about here about trauma and influence and what can come out of that. So I do want to read everybody a quote from The Thinning Veil, which is your newest book. And that is, but before we chase the mystery, we must establish the compass. Christ remains the center, discernment remains the safeguard, and truth, not fascination, remains the goal. And with that, I would like you to start by sharing your first encounter with the supernatural.
Okay. And when this experience happened to me, I wasn't able to put this together until later on in life because as a child, the UFO talk was just held for movies like, Fire in the Sky and things like that. It was all just kind of fiction. And the
Mm-hmm.
people you'd hear it from, they're just kind of considered a little bit out there or something. But when I
Yes.
was around 5 years old, I'm sitting on the edge of my bathtub, and because me and my sister shared a restroom, and they're at the sink brushing their teeth and getting ready. And of course, we have one of those windows that are kind of, I can't remember the term for them, but you can kind of see out, but it's all, you can't really make a good image. But anyway, I'm
Mhm.
sitting there, but you can make an image if something's real close, like face to it. While I'm sitting there, as they're brushing their teeth, and happen to look up at the window because I see something. All of a sudden, a face comes in. I make out the big kind of big eyes slanted, the oval head shape, and it stares, and I scream.
Wow.
And my sisters at the same time looked when I screamed. They screamed as well. We all took off running out of that bathroom to go find my mother.
I would too.
And and my mother's trying to calm us down because my dad worked in the oil field, so he was gone at nights a lot. Well, it just so happened as well, the phone, which was landlines back then, we didn't have cell phones.
Right.
Um, the phone was ringing, and my mother would answer it. There'd be nobody on the other end, so she'd hang it up. My dog was going crazy in the house, trying to get out. So my mom opened the door, the dog took off. Well, another phone call came. Still nobody on the other end of the line, so it's freaking my mother out. So
Yeah.
she calls the sheriff's department, and they come out and they look around the perimeter. They didn't see anything. In fact, we didn't see our dog till the next day, by the way.
Oh, wow.
And but we did. I guess we had some. We have a neighbor who lives probably about 50 yards away. It's kind of out in the country in a bit, but
Hmm.
it's still close enough to the city. And he was probably my sister's age or a little older. So my mother put, "Oh, he played a prank on us," in which
Yeah.
we had talked to this guy before, in which he never owned up to it. And it's kind of something he would have owned up to, which, that came later in life too. So me at that time, I accepted that our neighbor just played a prank on us, even though he never admitted to it.
Hmm.
Well, then it's years down the road that it always stuck in my mind. Like I say, I'm probably 5 years old, but that always
Right.
stuck in my mind.
Not something you easily forget.
No. And, but it was kind of nothing we even ever talked about really again. But as I'm going through this investigation of mine, I'm starting to put these pieces together of like, that may have actually been an encounter of what we had seen that night. And now, granted, besides I've seen one weird thing in the night sky, but other than that, I've never had any other type of supernatural encounter or any type of contact or anything like that. So it's
Hmm.
not something that consumed to my life. In fact, it wasn't until I came into the Catholic Church that these things started to make sense and what we're seeing with reports. And well, I needed to find out for my faith, where does that put me spiritually? Because
Okay.
I need to know where I stand with Christ in my life if there's alien life. And luckily, the investigation pulled me closer to Christ. All these things that we're seeing reported on talked about the Pentagon releasing all their evidence. It's once you do the deep dive, you realize all this is Christ-centered,
Mm.
and we can't be deceived by what's going on. In fact, I'll share a quote with you from, he's an Orthodox saint, Gabriel the Fool, and the reason why he called himself the Fool because he's a fool for Christ. But
Gotcha.
he died in 1995, and I don't know when he said the quote, but he said, "In the end times, do not look at the sky. You may be misled by false signs that will be presented there. You will be deceived and lost."
Mm.
And
And that was from he died in
he
1995.
died in 1995. So
So he's
somewhere in between
contemporary.
there, yeah.
Yeah.
So somewhere in between there, he knew that things were happening and coming. But again, so I needed to do a deep dive. I needed to know what this did to my Christian faith.
Well,
And
I think that's one of the points that you brought out, because full disclosure, I've read some of the book, and one of the things that you pointed out was that if your investigation shows that it's something that leads you closer to Christ, that's
mhm.
one thing. If it leads you away from Christ, then that may not be from God.
Yes,
Because the
exactly.
goal is to lead to Christ, as we quoted in that very first quote, that Christ is the center.
Yes. And now the hard part about discernment, though, is that some people think it could be leading them to Christ. They will feel a spiritual connection to some of these orbs they see. Or I don't know if you know the story of Chris Bledsoe.
No.
Okay, well, Chris Bledsoe is an actual phenomenon of a case in itself. He was just a construction worker who lived in Florida, had Crohn's disease and a few other complications. Well, while he was out and about, he ran into an orb, had an experience with an orb. Well, and the medical records show this, it's proof that his Crohn's disease went away.
Wow.
Well, then he can summons these orbs almost at will. In fact, you can look after you and I get done with this conversation, you and your audience can go look up his videos on YouTube. He can summon these orbs. But then he's also had an apparition. Um, what I'm He calls it the lady. Now, as Catholics, we would call it a Marian apparition.
Right.
And this all sounds, oh, and no, let me not forget this part, but he's also associated with the help of healing a a congressman's child from cancer.
Wow.
And another interesting, NASA has looked into him. In fact, he became close friends with one of the head honchos of NASA. The CIA has looked into him, and they've studied Chris Bledsoe. And now, what I was going to say about the discernment. Now, the lady he calls, like he just calls the lady, and she's made a prediction of 2026 this year. Something was supposed to happen around Easter, which it didn't, so he puts the timeline back. But then you go digging deeper, and it's probably not really Mary. It's another apparition. I believe he's really seen this, and I believe
Hmm.
these encounters are real, but I don't think they're from God. I think they
Okay.
could be, and because they can disguise themselves as good when they're really not. And
Right.
so that's where the discernment comes in because you know by the fruit. So the lady he called her like a queen of the great knowledge, the feminine side of Mother Nature and stuff like that. Well, us as Catholics and Christian theology does not teach that.
Right.
And
Right.
so and then other things have happened, but
Well,
anyway,
you brought to mind when you said that there could be deception in form. I mean, Satan disguised himself as the serpent, the
exactly.
snake, just
Hmm.
in the very, very beginning in Genesis. So we
Yes.
already see that happening.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad you bring this up because this phenomenon is not new, and so that's what a lot of people really need to understand is that these things have been talked about since the recorded history. You look in the hieroglyphics, you look at the designs that you can see entities, you can see giants, you can see what some actually a UFO type shape, and chariots flying in the sky. These are all date thousands of years ago.
Hmm.
Well, you look at the Bible. Look at the the burning bush, for example. A bush consumed by fire but without burning. Well, in those times and in that era, there was no other way to describe things. So they just had to put what their imagery told them. So we look at that today and we may say, oh, that's an orb. So like that's not an actual fire, but like an orb or a plasma ball of some sort. I mean, it just depends on the definition. We just use different definitions. Ezekiel's wheel from the Bible, the angels with many faces, and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. There have been other descriptions in modern times of that exact same image that other people have seen. It's like a wheel within a wheel, and those are like UAPs or other things. We have Daniel, the book of Daniel, who talks about uh, different types of creatures and animals coming out of the sea. And so the descriptive language that the writers of the Bible and of times like that, all they had was what their vocabulary was at that moment. But we're
Right.
still seeing the same things today. And the reason I call the book The Thinning Veil is because now we're all starting to see this veil thinning as more and more things are taking place. And they're making, now I don't know this to be true, and it could just be to our video and our social media, but we're seeing it more often.
Right.
But
Yeah.
and you'll notice that in America, it didn't start until 1947, after World War II, after we released the nuclear bomb.
Mm.
Now these orbs or UAPs that they see have, and this is on record. So all I'm going to tell you, because I go in as a skeptic, and then I just have to take facts for what they are,
Right.
and that's
Right.
why discernment is important. But some of these UAPs were at nuclear sites. They in Russia they engaged their nuclear missiles, and all the scientists were like, "What's going on here?" So anyway, they was able to turn it off, and they broke it down to see what went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Only thing they could say was whatever was in the sky did that. Well, America had another situation like that where it disarmed their nuclear weapons. And in fact, there's a whole squadron of pilots who were secretly meeting in this one spot in the sky. Well, there's an orb or a UAP. Well, they're following it, they gauge it, but it takes off, it breaks physics. I mean, that we just don't have the capability of having. Well, they meet at the rendezvous spot. Well, guess what's there? It's that UAP that is met where nobody but them knew where that was going to be, and apparently
Right.
that UAP. This has happened in Australia. So it's not just the United States that this happens in, even though that's where you hear most of it happening. It's
Right.
happening. Brazil is a big hot spot. Peru, Australia. It's just all over the world. But
Well, it's interesting. You mentioned you go in as a skeptic.
uh,
And I remember from our previous conversation that you were that way as well, too, with your exploration of the Catholic Church.
yes,
And so I like that that is consistent,
yeah,
and then you're also talking about the consistency of some of these descriptions, even though the language is different,
yes,
like the biblical descriptions and what we're seeing now, the language, the words that we're using may be
mhm,
different, but the descriptions seem to be consistent throughout time.
yes, yeah. No, that's exactly right, and that's part of that quote about the compass and finding our centerness is that these aren't new, and so now we have to go back in history to see where this all started taking place, and it's from the very beginning. And so this compass points us right to Christ, the fulfillment of prophecies, and then also what's still to come, even from the Book of Revelation.
Mm,
And
yeah.
and so and the thing is, we still don't know everything.
No.
I mean, there's lots out there that's we know this. We live in a spiritual. There's a spiritual realm around us, and
Right.
so the reason I say why I didn't start looking into this stuff until I became Catholic is because, as we talked about in our last meeting, we look at the miracles like Marian apparitions, Eucharistic miracles,
Hmm.
mystics of the saints like Padre Saint Pio.
Hmm.
we believe these things, we know them to be true. I mean, there's abundant evidence. It's because in the Catholic faith, we have 70,000 witnesses to Our Lady of Fatima, the miracle of the sun, where this orb, this spinning disc, is circling around in the sky, and it comes in. It had been rainy, and it dries everybody instantly like that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we have reporters, press conferences, agnostics, not everybody is Catholics, all witness this one phenomena. Well, it gets just pushed away. And then, so this, what year was that? 1917?
17. Yeah.
Yeah, that Lady Fatima happened. Well, then we're seeing these orbs again, but nobody references back to Our Lady of Fatima. So, well, we know those things can happen.
Yeah.
Our Lady of Lourdes, where healings take place, and I think the Vatican just confirmed number 72 of a healing at Our Lady of Lourdes. So we do have these phenomena that are real, that exist. Eucharistic miracles, there's a lot of those you can look into.
Yes. Yeah. St.
So
Carlo Acutis was great at cataloging all of those.
yes, yeah. In fact, our parish had a whole display of all his. You probably saw that. And
Yeah, I saw it when I was in.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can get so lost in just the Eucharistic miracles, and then also like just many of the saints that were mystics. Well, like Padre Pio was able to levitate. People witness this. He's
Yeah,
able to biolocate.
I actually just read about an instance where the fighter pilots in World War II saw a brown-robed friar in the sky, and he apparently disabled their systems and would not allow them to drop their bombs on, and I can't remember the name of the town, but a town in Italy. And then when the pilots at one point, one of them actually met Padre Pio and confirmed that that was indeed the man he saw in the sky.
Yeah.
And that's incredible. Yeah.
I mean, like I say, I get chills because of that, and
Yeah.
and so and that's the point. We know these things to be true. They're phenomenon that we don't understand in our materialistic world.
Right.
Of course, Padre Pio did, but then we look at Padre Pio, and what did he do? He fought physically with the devil. And that's another thing about these entities that, along with some of the good, like Our Lady of Fatima or Our Lady of Guadalupe, or all the other miracles we see, there's also the evil side of that, the fallen angels, the demons that attack,
Right.
especially when you're weak, like when in addiction. Addiction lets the evil spirits in and influence you. Now, it's not necessarily we know it's not a possession, but it's an oppression of where the devil has an influence on the addict. And this from even our talks before, addiction and addicts are always left with a void. They're looking for meaning. They're searching for something. And one of their escapes is to get into their addiction. And well, the demons take advantage of that totally. And so they'll use that oppression just to keep you down into your sickness, into your illness, because that's where they want you to be.
Right.
And like I told you that one time when I was in the rehab and I cried out to God, and all of a sudden I felt just that grace overwhelm me, and just all of a sudden calmed and relaxed. That's another moment of this stuff is real. It's not just folklore. It's not just words on a page. It's an active part of life. And we all become, in a way, spiritually numb or spiritually dead even. And it's time to waken it back up. And that's the beauty of the Catholic Church, is that it's always spiritually alive. That's the whole essence of its being. That's the whole point of the Eucharist, is that this is where God meets us and comes, and actually you get to intake his flesh and blood. And this is a mystery and a spiritual awareness that just other faiths don't have besides the Orthodox and the Catholic Church.
Right.
And so again, the point of the thinning veil is that things are going to even get who was it? Father Rippinger. You know who he is? He's the
Oh, the
ex.
exorcist, Father Ripperger. Ripperger.
Yeah, I
Yes.
can't I
There's
can't
an
ever say his name
extra
right.
syllable in there.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's talking about things are going to start getting darker and worse, and especially for the Catholics. And what we're going to have to do is stay strong and firm and keep to our faith, and do not let us get distracted by what's about to come. And so that's one of the importance in the uh, main reason I wrote the book was so people can show discernment. Just people need to stay focused, stay grounded, and stay Christ centered of where this all leads,
Right.
because there is a spiritual war going on. Not everything we can see. Now, uh, I talk about DMT in my book, which I don't think you probably didn't get that
I
part
didn't
since
get
the
that
whole
part.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, do you know what DMT is?
I do not.
Okay.
I was still calling everything UFOs. I hadn't transitioned into
Well,
UAPs yet.
well, DMT is classified really as a drug, even though technically it's not a drug. Our body naturally produces this chemical,
Hmm.
and it's also in plants and everything like that. It's a natural source, and if we ingest it, our enzymes break down this molecule so it doesn't affect us. But if you smoke it or do an IV of it, it'll take you to we'll call it another dimension, because that's could be what it is. So it only lasts like maybe 20 minutes. Eight to 20 minutes is as long as it can last. But what
Hmm.
they what they're coming to realize is that when this is taken, people see the same entities in the same places who've never met before.
Oh, wow.
So and so they've done a laser experiment, which you can look this up on YouTube, but they'll take DMT and then they'll shoot a laser across a wall, and they look into this laser, and everybody sees a code that looks like ancient Sanskrit or some type of code. They don't know what it is, but they all see it.
Hmm.
So the thought is that there's something in our bodies and that God created us with, that either that DMT connects something or it disconnects something, so you can actually get a peek into this other dimension. Well, this one fellow who was interviewed on Michael Knowles, he used to do mushrooms. He was always in trouble, and he's hallucinated, and he tried DMT. Well, he happened to see the bad side of the dimension where these demon-like figures got to him and like literally picked his body up, threw him on a bed or something like that. But he and a few others have seen these same demons, even though they don't know each other from Adam. So,
Hmm.
where others have had different experiences, but similar experiences. And so, the point of that, the reason I brought up DMT is because when you die, you produce a whole bunch of DMT. And so, write about near death experiences in this book as well, because it was Harvard, and then some other some other doctor was doing the studies on near death experiences. Well, a lot of these people have the same stories about the light, seeing loved ones, being in this other dimension.
Hmm.
There was even one where she was in Britain and she coded and died. And as she was looking down on her body, she noticed a red tag on the ceiling fan up top. And well, when she came back, she told them there's a red sticker on that ceiling fan. And they get the ladder, go up there. Sure enough, there's a red sticker on that
Oh,
ceiling
wow.
fan. Someone found shoes on top of by an HVAC unit on a roof. And they said, there's a pair of shoes up there. They go up there they are.
Wow.
One nurse lost her keys. She goes, "Oh, you put it in that drawer when you were panicking because you had to give me CPR." She goes and look, and there's your keys.
Yeah, I've always wondered about those. I have a couple of the books that people have written on my bookshelves. Some I've read and others I haven't. Sometimes you get the feeling like the reports are the same, and then other times it's like they seem so different. Like their descriptions of heaven seem so different. And it makes me wonder, okay, is this are these descriptions real? Did they really have this experience? Or is heaven different for everybody?
Yeah, and that's a good question. Um, I don't guess we really know. But what the Harvard professor noticed, and this other doctor, which I can't remember his name, leaves me. He wrote a book too, but there's probably more similarities than there are not on the
Hmm.
experience in itself, and so there is something with that, and so that's why I bring up the near death experiences and the DMT, is because these things are the real mystical things that we don't know about as humans and stuff, and that we're just now doing breakthrough technology on, realizing that there is a different place than our materialistic world, that there's a realm and we can reach it and we can see it, and that it was designed like that. Now, by by our creator, of course. Now, whether we're intended to see it on our own, like making it happen with science, I don't know.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
if the I don't want to play with it, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
But
Yeah.
that's the point, though, is that for the skeptics out there who don't believe in these things, then I highly recommend you do your own research, because this stuff is real and it's out there and it's just going to progress and progress. And so you need to know how to discern the fruits that these produce and whether they're good or evil.
Yeah.
And you'll know. And it's not going to be, some people have had experiences with orbs where they felt nothing but love and peace. And maybe that's a good one. I don't know. I really don't know what to tell
Right.
them on that. But there's others to where they've gotten real sick when they've had experiences with these
Hmm.
orbs. And so that could be part of the battle where we have the good and evil, and maybe some of them are. But what we do know is that Christ is real, that he resurrected. And I mean, just the story of the Shroud of Turin is interesting in itself if you haven't
Yeah.
got it to date on that. And so we know these things to be true. We know Christ to be true, Christ resurrected, and that we do have heaven and we do have hell.
Right.
So now we just have to keep our focus directly, our compass pointed directly on Christ, no matter what you hear, no matter what you see, and then you'll be in good shape. Otherwise, you're going to fall into a spiral.
Well,
And
that's one of the things that that I've heard over the years is that Satan doesn't deceive us with necessary falsehoods. He can deceive us with the truth that's just slightly off.
well, master of lies.
Yes, yes. And so to appear as something good, to appear as, something from God, that would be again master
Hmm.
deception. That
Well, we can see that happen with Muhammad, right? He Muhammad talked to an angel who thought was the angel Gabriel, and who gave him the Quran. And that was one of those instances where the Satan was able to manipulate that time and space to where he started a whole new religion that's outpacing the Christian religion.
Mhm.
So yes, the devil does work like that and can work like that. And even Muhammad, when that first happened, he even told his wife, "No, I think that was from the devil." And of course, his wife convinced him, like, "No, no, it's from God. You need to."
Wow, that part I did not know that.
Yeah,
I did
yeah.
not know that. Wow. So I know you said that we are to judge by the fruits, but do you have any like specific, like just a specific tip, or I don't know, tip sounds odd, but a specific way that you would advise people to measure, test, discern the good
Ye-
from the evil if they're having these types of encounters?
yes. Now, if you're Catholic, that's easy. You follow the church. You go by what the church teaches. The Catholic Church is one of the best at navigating the waters of the spiritual realm of what's good and what's bad. You can look into the catechism. See, the Catholic Church does not and never has denied about alien life or UAPs. In fact, they have an observatory.
Yeah.
And in fact, they basically invented the scientific method on things as well. I bet you don't know who Diana Pasulka is, Dr. Diana Pasulka.
No, I have not heard of her.
She is a theologian professor, I believe at North Carolina State or something like that. And she's a Catholic, but she teaches theology at this university. But she did what I did and investigated. Of course, she went way deep. She goes to interviews with people,
Yeah.
and she was able to get an invite to the Vatican and go
Wow.
into the archives. And because the Vatican has all kinds of archives, I mean, they know a lot of things. In fact, stuff that we're not ever going to know. But she was able to take one of her colleagues with her who was I think he was a Protestant, or he kind of had a belief, but whatever. But after the Vatican, he became Catholic.
Wow.
And they've been investigating these UAPs and talking about it. She's been on Joe Rogan and a few other podcasts talking about the same phenomena you and I are talking about as well, because she knows they're real. Because some people, like you ever heard of night terrors,
Mm-hmm.
people wake up paralyzed. Well,
Mm-hmm.
she was investigating those, and like one person saw Saint Michael, but they didn't know it was Saint Michael because they were not religious at all. But they gave the perfect
Yeah.
description of Saint Michael, and
Wow.
and there's also Padre Pio, who saw the image that you have your angel watching over you, and this is an image he saw, and that there was dark forces all around, but your guardian angel was protecting you during your sleep when you're most vulnerable.
Yeah.
And so that's the benefit. When these things happen and you discern, just know that you are being protected. You have a guide, and your Catholic Church is your guide. The church lays everything out for you, and so that's how you discern. You don't interact, you don't engage. You just see if the church approves it or not, because they are the professionals.
Yes, I do remember that. I watched a video on something. It was something demonic, and that was one of the pieces of advice that was given was no, you don't engage.
Yeah.
You pray.
Yes, exactly.
You pray. Gregorian chant was also a suggestion. The rosary, another
Rosary.
suggestion.
Yeah. St.
So
Michael Chaplet. Yes.
yes. So,
Yeah.
well, this is a lot of information, and
I
it's
know.
also it's also probably I'd be willing to bet that we probably have at least one person listening who might be thinking tin hat, and and to be honest with you, I would be not in that camp, but I know these things are real, but until I had this conversation with you and reading part of the book prior, I hadn't put all of that together. The UFOs, the UAPs, the NDEs. Gosh, we're getting an alphabet soup here.
Yes.
The apparitions, and all of these things, I probably would not have lumped them into one category as having a spiritual or supernatural source for all of them. And to be honest, I've been avoiding all of the articles about the government releases and all. I'm like, I just don't want to know.
Yeah.
It's too much. It's too much. And so yeah, it has been enlightening, and I look forward to reading the whole book and learning more about your research and your encounters with this. So, do you have any last, I guess, advice or anything else that you would like people to know before they go buy the book?
No, it's just, I mean, I go in more detail in the book and then how to discern these things. Like you said, it's a lot of information, and I understand that because it took me a while to get there as well. But just look at that. But ignorance is bliss. There's nothing wrong with being ignorant as long as you're following the guidance of the church. you know. But the stuff is going to be put in your face. You are
Hmm.
eventually going to have to face it because it's coming, regardless.
Yeah.
But is there danger? No, there isn't because you're protected. But if you want to know and you want to, I don't know, just be ready for it. Just go in with discernment. That's it. Don't fall for everything. And
Right.
realize it could be aliens. It could be just spiritual. We don't know. And the Catholic Church even says this, but say if it is aliens, Jesus died for them too.
Yeah.
And so, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a truth, and it's something we're just going to have to contend with.
And I want to thank you for that point too, that you brought up that the church doesn't discount the fact that there could be life elsewhere. There could
Right.
be life on planets in galaxies other than Earth and the Milky Way. And so I appreciate you bringing that point out too, because we're not saying that every single thing that happens is one thing or the other.
Right.
And so I'm glad that we have the freedom to believe that, and discern,
Yeah.
discern, through the Word, through the Church. So, all right, and I do know you have with this book you have a new website. So if you want to tell everybody where they can find more about your research and your new website, share that, please.
Yeah, in fact, for some reason, you have to put in the www or it doesn't work. I don't know why that is. I'm sure it's something I'm doing, but go to www.thethinningveilproject.com. And there show the Pentagon files, the videos, and then also have another section of what the Bible, of all the encounters in the Bible that you can see with a little illustration of pictures and whatnot that reference certain scriptures and things like that. So, yeah, you can get a good grasp just from that website.
Okay, well, excellent. Well, thank you for doing the website and for writing the book. And I do encourage people to, who are curious about this topic, to go out and get the book
Yeah,
and use that healthy discernment. And yeah, I appreciate you letting me know about the new book and coming on to discuss this. It's like I said, it's a little different of a topic for Warrior Words, but I think it stems from that. You had this encounter, you had this traumatic experience during your addiction, and admittedly, that's where you were
hmm,
vulnerable and you're
yep,
vulnerable to these attacks. And I'm sure that we have a lot of listeners out there who have been in this vulnerable state, maybe not addiction, but maybe illness or grief and sadness,
yeah,
depression, and things like that. So I thank you for coming on, being willing to write the book, and coming on and sharing about this in our world, this spiritual, um, not mix, but how this it's not separate. I guess that's what I'm
right,
trying to say, is that we don't have heaven up here and we have earth in the middle and we have hell down here. It's not
right.
it's dimensional, not directional, I think.
Exactly right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I think you explained it well there. And then the one tip I did forget to mention is and you brought it up, is prayer, like the Rosary, the St. Michael Chaplet, and things like that. Prayers work. They are real. It is a true communication with the metaphysical, and uh, so do not ever uh, see that prayer isn't something that wouldn't fit into any situation. It will totally change.
Yeah. And that's why they say the rosary is a weapon.
Yeah, exactly right.
So
And I'll get you a copy of the full book. I don't know what happened there. I'll find it.
no worries at all. It was a fascinating read, and I look forward to reading the rest of it.
All right, well,
So,
good.
all right. Well, thank you so much for coming back on, Stephen, and sharing this new book, The Thinning Veil, with us today.
All right, thanks,
All
Heather.
right. Bye bye.
Bye.
Now, on the surface, this conversation may not seem like, your typical Warrior Words episode. However, on this podcast, we talk a lot about how our traumas and our storms lead us to how we are thriving today. And that is definitely the case here. On one hand, Stephen had a scary encounter when he was just 5 years old, and that left a very lasting impression on him. And later in life, he would develop an addiction that left him vulnerable. If you recall from our first episode, which was episode 140, Stephen's wife was ready to leave. He himself was full of dread, fear, and anxiety. Precisely the position the devil wanted him in. But Stephen chose to cry out to God and surrendered his life. Instead of allowing deception from the devil, he welcomed grace from God. All of this and more led to his exploration of unexplained phenomena from both sides of the spiritual realm. Now, I'll be the first to admit, I would have never thought that UFOs or UAPs would be in the same category as apparitions. But they are all spiritual, at least most of them. And most of them are also unexplained. And they could be used for both good and deception. Now, we didn't get into it in the conversation, but one of the things Stephen points out in The Thinning Veil is that the church does not rush to judgment. The church takes her time discerning, asking questions, and judging the fruits. Does whatever the unexplained phenomenon, does it point to Christ? Does it line up with sacred scripture? Does it produce good fruits? And while many of us would love to have a friendly alien in our closets to which we can feed M&Ms, am I dating myself with that ET reference? Probably. But Stephen made a good point about not engaging with what we may see or experience. In fact, I think we both suggested that we take out the weapon of prayer first. So yes, absolutely. We can follow the news and all of this release of information. But don't forget to use discernment. Don't forget to test it against Scripture and the church. And to be honest, the other thing that Stephen mentioned is, when we compare it to Scripture, maybe we need to remember some of the things that are stated in Scripture, or even some of the approved apparitions like Fatima. Why is it that we had multiple thousands of people who witnessed the sun dancing in the sky, who witnessed the instantaneous drying of their clothes and the ground? Why is it that that is not even offered as a possible explanation for what we're seeing in today's sky or in this release of information from decades past? Why is that not a consideration? Now, I would love to know, because inquiring minds want to know, another dated reference. But have you ever experienced any of these types of unexplained encounters, the good or the not so good? Let me know in the comments on YouTube, Rumble, or Spotify. Hit reply to my weekly email and let me know. And if you're not subscribed yet, the link, as always, is in the show notes. So go ahead and subscribe to my weekly emails. And I'll leave you with this. Pray and discern, but be not afraid. Something to think about this week. Until we meet again, armor up. Fight the good fight. Seek beauty. And make your words warrior words. God bless.